For heaven's sake. This Tory party and its unpredictable jumps is really driving me nuts. I just left a city council group meeting early to once again make a fourth video for a day because they're producing quite a chaos again. Oh, by the way, hello there. The race to succeed Liz Truss has been decided. Former Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak is now, at the second attempt, the leader of the British Conservatives and thus also soon the new British Prime Minister. He was the only candidate to have mobilized 100 supporters in the Tories parliamentary group by today afternoon. That was the prerequisite for all applicants to be able to run as party leader. At the beginning of September, Sunak was still inferior to Liz Truss in the party's internal competition and the vote of the members. More than 200 MPs publicly spoke out in favor of Sunak by the deadline of 3 p.m., although I heard about 188. Until then, only 27 public statements of support were known for his competitor Penny Mordaunt. However, her team explained to the end that she had more than 90 MPs behind her. Ultimately, it didn't matter because she withdrew from the competition just before 3 p.m., German time, by the way. Rishi has my full support, Mordaunt wrote on Twitter. Graham Brady, head of the parliamentary group's election committee and the topic of my last video, confirmed that there was only one valid nomination for party leader, Sunak's. This means that a vote in the lower house group is no longer necessary. This would have been queued if there had been two people with more than 100 supporters. And then the approximately 170,000 Conservative Party members would have had the floor again. Their vote alone would have been binding. Now, however, Sunak is advancing to the top of the party and thus to the top of the government without a fight. Both offices, head of the respective majority party in the House of Commons and head of government, are linked in Great Britain. It was already clear in the morning that everything was heading towards Sunak and that Mordaunt would hardly have a chance. Her attempt to win over supporters of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson to her side only partly succeeded. The Tory MP from Portsmouth in southern England and most recently Minister for Parliamentary Affairs is popular in the party but is considered inexperienced in financial matters. In the eyes of many Tories, Sunak, on the other hand, stands for a reliable course that, in the face of record inflation and exorbitantly rising energy prices, recognizing the realities and also speaks them out to the electorate. That obviously tipped the scales for many MPs, as it was failed Prime Minister Liz Truss' fiscal and financial policies that drew heavy criticism from the Conservatives. They plummeted in polls. A survey found a gap of 39 percentage points to the opposition Labour Party, a value never measured before. MPs who took the floor on Monday said the most important thing now is for the party to calm down and unite. By the way, I've just restarted the letters clock. With this government, you never know. So just in case you wondered what's going on here. In the past few days, it had looked like a three-way battle between Sunak, Mordaunt and Boris Johnson. Speculations about Johnson's comeback sparked huge unrest among the Tories. He returned prematurely from a vacation in the Caribbean over the weekend to explore his chances. Although, why did he go when Parliament was sitting? But okay. Johnson's supporters have consistently pointed to the fact that he's the only Tory to have won a general election in recent years. However, Johnson then withdrew from the competition on Sunday night. Up to this point, almost 60 MPs had publicly spoken out in favor of him. However, Johnson himself claims that it would have been easy for him to cross the 100 mark. In an extremely self-confident statement, he said, "It's very possible that I would be successful in the Conservative Party election and that I could actually be back in Downing Street on Friday." Johnson was only persuaded by party friends to give up his post in the summer. You have to remember that. He fell over numerous scandals. And his most serious mistake was that he had attended illegal parties at his official residence in the middle of the corona lockdown and had not told the public the truth about it. "I believe I have a lot to offer, but I'm afraid this is not just the right time," Johnson wrote. He cannot govern unless he has a united party behind him in Parliament. Now that Sunak has been confirmed as the new party leader, he still has to be installed as Prime Minister in the coming days, probably tomorrow. Unlike here in Germany, for example, this does not happen through an election in Parliament. It's up to King Charles III to appoint the Prime Minister. A date for this has not yet been set, but I speculate it will be tomorrow. Born in Southampton in 1980 to Indian immigrants, Sunak studied politics, philosophy and economics at Oxford, where he graduated with top marks. He later earned a Master's of Business Administration from Stanford University in California. There, he met his current wife, Akshata Murthy, with whom he now has 2 children. Sunak later worked for the investment bank Goldman Sachs and was a partner in 2 hedge funds. In 2015, he became a member of the British Parliament. His background is important to him, says the new Prime Minister. My parents emigrated here, so there's a generation of people who were born here, whose parents weren't born here, who came to this country to build a life, he said in an interview with the BBC in 2019. As a Hindu, he went to the temple at the weekend, but also to football games. He has experienced little racism. He only remembers one incident. According to his descriptions, he was with his younger brother and sister in a fast food restaurant. There were people sitting nearby. It was the first time I experienced it, who said some very uncomfortable things, and it hurt. I still remember it. It burned in my memory. You can open many different ways to be offended. During this time, during his time as a banker, Sunak was able to accumulate a not inconsiderable fortune. He is one of the richest Britons in the kingdom. Sunak and his wife Akshata Murthy are ranked 222nd out of 250 on the Times 2022 Rich List, with a combined fortune of around £730 million. That's the equivalent of more than 860 million euros, by the way. The couple also owns several properties valued around 15 million. And according to the British newspaper The Guardian, Sunak is the first top politician in the country to be counted among the richest people in Great Britain. But where did Sunak, a former hedge fund manager, and his wife get the money from? Rishi Sunak was already a multi-millionaire in his mid-20s. That's what the Times reported in 2020. However, Sunak never spoke publicly about his fortune. According to information from the Sun newspaper, so take it cautiously, also from 2020, his net worth was estimated at around £200 million. Sunak's wife, Akshata Murthy, who was said to be richer than the Queen, contributes a large part of the fortune. Her personal wealth is estimated at around £430 million, according to the Metro newspaper. The late Queen Elizabeth II was worth £350 million. The heiress to a multi-billion-dollar fortune, who was born the same year as her husband, was born into an Indian family of entrepreneurs, as the BBC writes. Her family earned their money in the IT industry, among other things. Her father, Narayana Murthy, co-founded Infosys, one of the largest companies in India, which operates in around 50 countries, according to the BBC. In 2021, the company made a turnover of $13.5 billion. According to Forbes magazine estimates, Narayana Murthy's net worth is £4.4 billion. That's the equivalent of more than 5.1 billion euros. Akshata Murthy also owns shares in Infosys, according to the BBC, 0.9% according to the IT company's annual report. Their stake varies in value, but it's estimated at around £700 million. She also receives annual dividend payments on the shares, which totaled 11.6 million last year, as the broadcasters said. Murthy is also director of Catamaran Ventures UK, which invests in startups according to their LinkedIn profile. She and Sunak founded the company in 2013, according to the BBC. Sunak stepped down as director in 2015 when he became an MP. A year later, his wife became the majority shareholder there. In 2020, Catamaran Ventures UK reported the value of its investments as £3.5 million. Questions surrounding Rishi Sunak and his wife's personal wealth have tarnished the reputation of Britain's first Hindu finance minister at the time. During the last election campaign in the summer, Sunak wore outrageously expensive shoes from the luxury brand Prada when visiting a construction site. In addition, a video from Sunak's student day surfaced in which the then 21-year-old set off his circle of friends, which consisted of aristocrats, people from the upper class and, well, from the working class, and then added, no, from the working class, not. There was also criticism for tax tricks. It was revealed in April, according to TV channel ITV, that Modi had a so-called no-dom status, which normally applies to someone who was born abroad and spends a large part of his time in the UK, but a different one, but nonetheless sees a different country as permanent residence. It's estimated that Modi could have saved £20 million in tax on dividends from her shares in Infosys with his non-dom status, according to ITV. I talked about this in April as well. Modi later agreed to pay UK tax on her foreign income, and Sunak was acquitted of breaching the ministerial code. But Sunak himself was also criticized for possible tax benefits. The Independent newspaper reported in April this year that he was a beneficiary of tax haven trusts when he was finance minister. Trusts in the British Virgin Islands and the Cayman Islands, which were formed to help manage the tax and business affairs of his wife's family interests, according to the Independent, named Sunak as a 2020 beneficiary. Trusts are mergers of several companies which give up their legal and economic independence in contrast to a group. The merger of companies into a trust takes place either through the takeover of the assets of the transferring company by another company, or through the merger of the companies and the formation of a new company. That's at least how the Federal Agency for Civic Education explains this. So that's where I got it. Politicians with equity portfolios and investments routinely set up blind trusts when they land government jobs, according to the BBC. This allows them to continue earning income from their investments without knowing where the money is invested. The aim is to eliminate potential conflicts of interest when making economic policy decisions that could bring them some more money. That's a practice that is quite controversial. Sunak therefore founded his trust in 2019. The Ministry of Finance said that at the time that Sunak had faithfully followed the ministerial code. According to the BBC, former Prime Minister Theresa May also had such a trust. Sunak benefits above all from the misconduct of his predecessors now. His second chance now leads him into office. After Johnson and Truss, he is, so to speak, the third choice of the Tories. He is not elected by the people, although no Prime Minister is there anyway in that system. His term of office is unlikely to bring any major reversals, with the exception of the financial policy area. The self-confessed Brexit supporter wants to speed up the breach of the Northern Ireland Protocol, a step that is likely to further strain relations with the EU. He wants to limit the number of refugees in Great Britain, with his background, and promote the admission agreement with the African state of Rwanda, so deportations. He's behind the support for Ukraine and wants to reduce VAT on energy. His greatest challenge will probably be to reunite the divided Tories. You can't govern effectively if you don't have a united party in Parliament. That was what Boris Johnson said, explaining his withdrawal. Well, this mammoth task is now assigned to Sunak. And once again, let us clock. Just saying. And I'll see you in my next planned video, but I talk not about Sunak in the first ones tomorrow, but in the evening again I will talk about Sunak. But there are more topics in Britain as well. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.